Before you listen, if you enjoy the stories and want to hear more, then please consider subscribing. Most of you listening aren't subscribed, so please take this time to subscribe. Turn on notifications so you'll never miss a story and be the first to hear. You'll also be supporting me. Thank you. It all started when my group of friends and I decided to take a road trip through California in the summer of 2018. We had always talked about going on an adventure together, and we thought that a road trip would be the perfect opportunity to make memories that we would never forget. We planned our route carefully, mapping out all the scenic routes and must-see destinations. We decided to start our trip in San Francisco and drive down to Los Angeles, taking detours along the way to see all the natural wonders that California had to offer. We hit the road around midnight, ready to start our adventure. The first few hours were uneventful, with nothing but empty roads and dark skies surrounding us. But as we got deeper into the hills, things started to get more interesting. The winding roads were a challenge to navigate, with sharp turns and steep hills that kept us on our toes. But the stunning views of the rolling hills and tall trees made it all worth it. We had the windows down, and the cool night air was refreshing after being cooped up in the car for hours. As we were driving through one particularly isolated area, we were all chatting and laughing, not paying much attention to the road. Suddenly, there was a loud thud, and the car jerked to the side. We had hit something, but we weren't sure what. We quickly pulled over to the side of the road, our hearts pounding in our chests. We got out of the car and looked around, but we didn't see anything. We walked around the car, checking for damage, and that's when we saw it, a smear of blood on the front of the car. Our hearts sank. We had hit something, and it was not good. We started to panic, not knowing what to do next. We stood there for what felt like an eternity, trying to process what had just happened. Finally, one of us suggested that we should look around to see if we hit an animal or something. We grabbed our flashlights and started searching the area, but we found nothing. That's when we realized that whatever we hit wasn't an animal, it was a person. We were all in shock. We had hit a person, and they were nowhere to be found. We started to feel sick to our stomachs, not knowing what to do next. We knew that we should call the cops, but we were all drunk and didn't want to get in trouble. As we got back into the car, a strange feeling came over us. It was as if we were being watched, and there was a feeling of discomfort that overtook us. We started the car and drove away, hoping to put the incident behind us. But as we drove, we saw a lady in a pink hoodie walking down the road. It was strange, as we hadn't seen anyone else on the road for hours. We thought it was a coincidence, but as we drove further, we saw her again. She seemed to appear out of nowhere, and it was like she was following us. We tried to ignore her and focus on driving, but every time we turned a corner or came around a bend, she was there. It was like she was leading us somewhere. We were all scared and didn't know what to do. We stopped the car and got out to confront her, but as we approached, she disappeared into the woods. We were all spooked and decided to drive away as fast as we could. The rest of the journey was uneventful, but something about that lady in pink was definitely freaking off. Days after the incident, we'd all talked about what had happened that night. We knew that we had made a mistake by not reporting the accident, but we were too scared to face the consequences if it really was a person. We realized that we should have taken responsibility and done the right thing, but we still wonder if that lady in pink was the supposed ghost of whatever we hit. I really do hope it was just a deer or something. It was a typical school day, but it felt different. The whole school was buzzing with excitement about the upcoming school trip. We were heading to an activity center in Southend, a seaside town in England, for a weekend of team building and adventure. We had been looking forward to it for weeks. The bus ride started out great. We chatted, laughed, and sang along to our favorite songs. The teachers handed out snacks, and we settled in for the journey ahead. But then we hit what seemed to be a bump in the road, literally. The bus started shaking, and the engine roared loudly before coming to a sudden stop. The teachers tried to fix the problem, but it was no use. The bus was dead, and we were stranded in the middle of nowhere. There was no cell phone signal, and it was getting dark. The teachers decided that we should all stretch our legs and get some fresh air while they tried to figure out what to do next. As we got out of the bus, we realized that we were in the middle of a desolate road, with no streetlights or houses in sight. The darkness was thick, and it was difficult to see more than a few feet ahead of us. It was eerily quiet, and the only sound was the rustling of leaves and the occasional hoot of an owl. We were instructed to stay in groups, and the teachers went to inspect the bus while we took a short walk. I was in a group with my friends, and we walked a little further down the road. We were talking and laughing, not realizing that one of us was missing. It was only when we regrouped with the teachers that they did a head count and noticed that Daniel was missing. Our minds raced with worst-case scenarios, and the teachers instructed us to spread out and call out his name. We scanned the surrounding woods, hoping to spot any signs of life. After what felt like an eternity, we heard a faint cry in the distance. We followed the sound until we found Daniel sitting on a tree stump, sobbing uncontrollably. We were relieved to find him safe, but also confused as to how he had wandered off. Daniel had always been a quiet boy, and he was rarely seen without his nose buried in a book. He was never the type to wander off on his own, especially in the middle of the woods at night. It took a while for him to calm down, but when he did, he revealed a terrifying story. He said that an old lady who looked like a witch had dragged him to the woods and into a hole. He said that he was terrified and that she kept muttering something under her breath. He couldn't remember what it was, but it sounded like a chant. At first, we thought Daniel was just playing a prank on us. He was known for being the quiet one in the group, and we often joked that he had a mischievous side that he kept hidden from us. So when he came running towards us, crying and shaking, we assumed he was trying to scare us. One of the guys said with a laugh to cut it out, but Daniel just kept crying and pleading with us to believe him. It was then that we realized he wasn't joking. Something had happened to him out there in the woods. I'm not a superstitious person or really believe in ghosts or whatever, but that day really shook me. We were all very scared. I remember vividly how afraid I was and how we couldn't wait to get back home. Eventually, a rescue team arrived. I think we had a tracker or some sort on our bus. We were all taken back to our school. It was a relief to be back in a familiar environment, but the memory of that day stayed with me for a long time. It was a total vibe, just me and my crew, cruising down the road, music blasting, ready to turn up at this party we heard about. The rain was coming down like crazy, but we were feeling good and nothing was gonna stop us. We were driving down these winding roads that cut through a dense forest, and I gotta say, it was getting kinda creepy. The trees were all bent over the road, like they were trying to swallow us whole. The darkness was closing in, and the only light we had was from our headlights. Suddenly, the road started getting narrower and narrower, and the trees were getting so close that it felt like they were scraping the sides of the car. We were all a bit nervous, but we tried to shake it off and keep the good vibes going. That's when we saw her, a girl standing alone in the middle of the road. We all gasped and the driver swerved to avoid her, but when we looked back in the rear view mirror, she was gone. We were all shook, but we tried to tell ourselves that maybe it was just a trick of the light or the rain messing with our heads. But then we saw her again, standing on the side of the road just watching us. She had long, dark hair and was wearing a white dress that was soaked from the rain. It was like she appeared out of nowhere. The driver slowed down, and we debated whether or not to pick her up. Some of us wanted to help her, but others were creeped out and wanted to keep driving. We decided to stop and see if she needed a ride. But when we opened the door, she didn't say anything. She just got in and sat silently in the back seat. We all exchanged uneasy glances, but we tried to make small talk to break the tension. But then things started to get even weirder. The girl's eyes started widening, and her skin turned a sickly pale color. We all freaked out and the driver hit the brakes, trying to get her out of the car. But when we turned around, she opened the door and was gone. That's when we started to realize that something wasn't right. We were in the middle of nowhere with no other cars in sight, and this girl was nowhere to be found. We tried to move on from the feeling, but it just kept getting worse. Suddenly, the car started to sputter and the engine died. We were stuck in the middle of the forest with no cell service and no idea what to do. We were all starting to panic. One of my friends suggested that we get out and look for the girl, thinking that she might have had something to do with our car breaking down. But as soon as we stepped out of the car, we heard strange noises coming from the woods around us. It sounded like something was moving, like branches snapping and twigs breaking. We were all starting to get really scared at this point, and we decided to get back into the car and lock the doors. We sat there in silence for what felt like hours. The rain was still coming down hard, and we were all getting soaked. We were all thinking the same thing. How are we going to get out of this mess? We tried the engine again, but it wouldn't start. That's when we heard a voice, a soft, whispery voice coming from outside the car. It was a girl. She was saying something, but we couldn't make out what it was. It was like she was trying to communicate with us. We rolled down the window a little bit, and we could hear her voice, faint and distant, calling out for help. We were hesitant, but we knew we had to check it out. We got out of the car and started walking towards the voice, trying to navigate through the darkness and the rain. It wasn't long before we stumbled upon a clearing, and there she was, standing in the middle of it, surrounded by an eerie mist. She looked even more terrifying than before, with blood-red eyes and a twisted, outlandish face. But despite her appearance, there was something about her that drew us in, something that made us feel like we had to help her. We approached her cautiously, trying to get her to explain what was going on. She told us her name was Emily and that she had been hiking in the woods when she got lost. She said she had been wandering around for hours and that she was scared and alone. We offered to help her, but as we started to lead her back to the car, things started to get even stranger. The mist around us grew thicker, and we started to hear strange whispers coming from all around us. We tried to ignore it and keep moving, but then, I kid you not, this girl ran right back into the forest, and of course we knew we had to go after her. After about an hour of searching, we found nothing and reluctantly went back to the car. We tried the engine once again, and thankfully this time it started. We hopped in and sped away. We still think about whether it was a spirit or an actual human we came across. But whatever it was, we hope she's okay. Thanks for listening in. If you like these stories and want to hear more, then please subscribe and like and support this new channel. We have more stories for you to listen to.